Manchester United is currently one of football's most chaotic clubs, and despite the money they've spent, they can never achieve success. But the situation wasn't always like this. The Red Devils were once so dominant both on and off the pitch that under Alex Ferguson, they were among the world's biggest clubs. However, now they have practically become comedy material. So how did a Scottish man make Manchester United the world's biggest club with his right moves? Let's look at the answer to this question together. Before we get into the video, let's not forget to take 2 seconds to subscribe to our channel and give the video some hype for this kind of content, analysis and stories. Manchester United fans were celebrating their 1967 First Division Championship in England, unaware that this triumph would lead their team into a long slumber. Indeed, after poor performances that saw the Red Devils relegated for the first time in 1974, the fate of the person who would restore them to greatness was unfolding differently in Scotland. When Alex Ferguson ended his football career in 1974 and began his managerial career in Stirlingshire at just 32 years old, his aggressive and authoritarian demeanour at his first team had already caught significant attention from the Scottish media. Bobby McCulley, an experienced player on the team he managed, said about the 32-year-old young manager, "I've worked with many people in my lifetime, but in my 25-year career, he was the manager I feared most." After this team, the Scottish manager experienced an adventure with Streetmirren, taking them from an ordinary lower league club to First Division Championship, and reaped the rewards of this success at a young age by taking charge of Aberdeen, one of Scotland's established clubs. Upon joining the club, he parted ways with many experienced players who didn't take him seriously, and with his youth-focused squad, he broke the Celtic and Rangers hegemony in 1980 to achieve the Scottish League Championship. However, his style of achieving success was heavily criticised at the time. He received intense criticism regarding his treatment of players. For instance, in 1981, throwing a teapot at John Hewitt, one of the team's players, caused some players at the club to turn against him. But the result didn't change. Aberdeen continued to dominate their league under Ferguson's management during those years, and in 1983 they defeated Real Madrid to win the UEFA Cup Winners' Cup. So authority had brought success. Indeed, the 1984-85 season marked his last championship with that team, and to this day, it still holds the distinction of being the last championship by a team other than Rangers and Celtic. So the manager had created a tremendous revolution in Scottish football with both domestic and international success during that period. When 1986 arrived, the Scottish manager decided to leave the club, saying, "I have completed my mission." Despite offers from Arsenal and Rangers, he closed his Scottish chapter by managing the Scotland national team one last time at the World Cup. When the calendar showed November 1986, Ferguson's destiny intersected with the Manchester team. Manchester United, who had made a disastrous start to the 1986-87 season under manager Ron Atkinson, sought their solution in Alex Ferguson, who had worked miracles in Scotland. However, when they signed Ferguson, things were far from easy. Although Manchester United was a sleeping giant at the time, their squad didn't look very good. They were experiencing management problems, and they were sitting in 21st place near the bottom of the league. Ferguson's first objective at the club was naturally to establish authority and control everything. First, he needed to control the players. The team had many undisciplined players and a serious alcohol problem. To solve this, he aggressively warned stars like Paul McGrath and Norman Whiteside. Besides them, Ferguson employed virtual spies throughout Manchester for many players with nightlife problems, making plans for many players living disorderly lives. The club naturally had structural problems at the time. Employees weren't starting work during business hours, weren't fulfilling their duties, and virtually weren't taking United seriously. In fact, the day after signing with the club, on November 7, 1986, when Alex Ferguson arrived early at the facilities and saw that officials weren't at their posts at that hour, he was furious and immediately fired them all. However, organising everything initially wasn't easy. Indeed, Ferguson lost his first match 2-0 against Oxford United. Time was naturally needed in his first 3 seasons. Apart from working to establish a system and fix fundamental problems, he couldn't achieve any serious success. But the most critical season for him was 1989-90. The Scottish manager, who had made significant expenditures in his 3-year process but couldn't achieve success, became a target after the poorly started and continuing 1989-90 season. In fact, after a lost match, the stands displayed banners saying 3 years of excuses and chanted against him. Such a reaction was understandable. 23 years had passed since the team's last championship. So Alex Ferguson's dismissal was clearly on the agenda at the time. The decisive match was against Nottingham Forest in 1990, a game they would play without having won in 7 matches. Before the FA Cup match, authorities were saying if Ferguson can't win this match, he'll be fired, and the Scottish manager was literally on the edge. However, winning the match became a serious turning point for him. Although the desired league positions weren't achieved that year, the FA Cup victory and the subsequent Cup Winners' Cup initiated the rise of Ferguson and Manchester United. The following year, the club finished second in the league, gradually showing signs of stronger days. When we reached November 1992, a different turning point occurred for Manchester United. Star player Eric Cantona was transferred from eternal rival Leeds United. With Cantona's tremendous adaptation to the team, the Red Devils achieved the championship in the 1992-93 season after a 26-year gap. United, who won the double the season following this, were deprived of their most important player Eric Cantona for 4 months in the 1994-95 season due to the penalty he received after his incident with a fan kung fu kick in the Crystal Palace match, and finished the season in second place by a hair's breadth behind Blackburn. When we reached the 1995-96 season, we returned to the times when the foundations of the best Manchester United in recent history were laid. At the very beginning of that season, important names from the championship winning squad, Paul Ince, Mark Hughes, and Andrei Kanchelskis, left the team, while the Red Devils hadn't made significant transfers to replace these names. The Scottish manager gave the answer: the team's youngsters are already ready for this criticised situation. Indeed, in the season when many players from the academy, referred to as the class of '92, were included in the team, these names included David Beckham, Gary Neville, Phil Neville, Nicky Butt, Paul Scholes, and Ryan Giggs. Manchester United would compete that season with a team dominated by these young players. Naturally, there were big question marks. When this young team lost 3-1 to Aston Villa at the season's opening, reactions began to increase. British commentator Alan Hansen even made a harsh criticism, saying, "You can't win anything with kids." Ferguson students defeated Inter in the Champions League quarter-finals and Juventus in the semi-finals during the 1998-99 season, facing Bayern Munich in the final. In the final in Barcelona, although they fell behind with the goal they conceded from Mario Basler at the beginning of the match, Sheringham and Solskjaer's goals in extra time miraculously led to a historic European victory for the team. So the peak point of the team that Alex Ferguson had meticulously crafted was seen in Europe, and that year they closed the season by completing the treble, winning Europe, the League, and the Cup. So when we reached the millennium, the sleeping giant had awakened, and Manchester United had clearly positioned itself at the pinnacle of world football. Post-millennium, Ferguson's team would reach a completely different level. In the 2000-2001 season, when the young generation matured alongside the stars, Manchester United experienced their 3rd consecutive Premier League championship. Moreover, this championship meant the club's 4th Premier League championship in the last 5 seasons, which was a record for that time. When we reached the summer of 2001, the team parted ways with many players including Stam and Cole and entered a striker search. Indeed, United, who added Diego Forlan to their squad at that time, also bought Ruud van Nistelrooy from PSV, despite his negative medical report, with Ferguson's approval saying, "I had the same thing during my playing career, nothing will come of this injury." During Ferguson's 26-year reign managing the Premier League, the period between 2007 and 2010 was undoubtedly on a completely different level. Although Alex Ferguson preferred certain formations, he was never stubborn about tactics. He had a plan in almost all systems, like for 4-2, for 3-3, 3-5-2, even 4-2-4. He shaped the squad according to the output he would get from players. Considering that Amorim is still insisting on a three-man system, this situation seems quite absurd. The strongest Manchester United team I want to give as an example is Van der Sar in goal, Gary Neville or Wes Brown at right back, Evra at left back, Ferdinand and Vidic in tandem, Carrick and Scholes in midfield, Ronaldo on the right side, Giggs on the left side, and Rooney and Tevez up front. This tactic generally turned into a trio up front. In addition to all this, the greatness Ferguson brought to the club wasn't just about on-field matters. First of all, he created a character. While Manchester United was a more casual, less disciplined, less seriously taken club before him, thanks to his moves, the manager had given the club an identity. So Manchester United is Ferguson, and Ferguson is Manchester United. Economist Stefan Szymanski and journalist Simon Cooper write in their book Soccernomics that money determines a football club's performance between 80% and 90%. The rest is the situation of the leader at the head of the team. However, at Manchester United, contrary to this book, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that Ferguson's share would be even 50%, because he took the club very far both on and off the field. Thanks to his successes, from 1995 to 2015, the club was among the teams generating the most revenue, and today, despite being unsuccessful, they still rank in the top 5. Again, during the Ferguson era, they opened up to the Asian market, creating a serious revenue stream. In conclusion, Sir Alex Ferguson won a total of 38 trophies during his 26-year career at Manchester United, including 13 Premier League championships, 5 FA Cups, and 2 Champions League championships. He is the most trophy-winning manager in history. That's why Manchester United was definitely the world's biggest at one time thanks to him. The biggest reason for being surprised at the current poor situation is these massive past successes. So do you think we can see such a manager again in football history, or have we seen one? I await all your comments.